Nikon for a long time. I've served many roles at Nikon, from technical support to product management, and now I run a division in pro relations and the Nikon Ambassador Program. And with all of that work I do within Nikon, there is nothing that separates me from the addiction and the passion of photography once I leave the building every day. So we'll talk about that. I do believe in a sense of humor and having some laughs with yourself, making pictures that make people smile, making pictures that make people feel great about themselves. You'll see that's one of the things that's important. Because we all love pictures that make us feel good, right? I love this picture of myself that my buddy Brian photographed at a Three Doors Down concert when we were working with the band. And I've used it a lot, and I don't mind posting it social. But I do have a hard time when someone takes a picture of me, and maybe you can associate this with this, that just doesn't make me look good. Has anybody ever posted a picture of you online and it's, why did you post that picture? I just don't look good. And that's what it is. In portrait photography, to me, you do have that responsibility. But I do come from Long Island, New York. I made this picture with a D800 many years ago of the Statue of Liberty. And I love playing with the technology within the cameras to make sure that I can use them quickly and efficiently. And this is simply a picture early morning with the fog coming up from Liberty Island back at the statue. And I just set the camera to tungsten white balance to create the blue. Simplicity is the key for me, and you'll see that in the photography. I like to keep those moments that I capture very, very simple. So that was me as a child with my mom. Here's some of the work that I do and have done through the years. I love sports and action photography. I love moments, and I'll be talking a lot about moments and gestures within portrait photography. And with all of that work I do within Nikon, there is nothing that separates me from the addiction and the passion of photography once I leave the building every day. So we'll talk about that. I do believe in a sense of humor and having some laughs with yourself, making pictures that make people smile, making pictures that make people feel great about themselves. You'll see that's one of the things that's important. Because we all love pictures that make us feel good, right? I love this picture of myself that my buddy Brian photographed at a Three Doors Down concert when we were working with the band. And I've used it a lot, and I don't mind posting it social. But I do have a hard time when someone takes a picture of me, and maybe you can associate this with this, that just doesn't make me look good. Has anybody ever posted a picture of you online and it's, why did you post that picture? I just don't look good. And that's what it is. In portrait photography, to me, you do have that responsibility. But I do come from Long Island, New York. I made this picture with a D800 many years ago of the Statue of Liberty. And I love playing with the technology within the cameras to make sure that I can use them quickly and efficiently. And this is simply a picture early morning with the fog coming up from Liberty Island back at the statue. And I just set the camera to tungsten white balance to create the blue. Simplicity is the key for me, and you'll see that in the photography. I like to keep those moments that I capture very, very simple. So that was me as a child with my mom. Here's some of the work that I do and have done through the years. I love sports and action photography. I love moments, and I'll be talking a lot about moments and gestures within portrait photography. I really appreciate opportunities where, like the Queen of England comes to the Kentucky Derby, I may never see that again. I love the power of light. I love the power of location, and doing anything I can with lenses to try to make the best frame that I possibly can, fill it with the right elements. I love wildlife photography. I love how animals and people interact. So this is just a quick snippet of the types of work that I do. A little baby egret chick in the mother's legs. Two birds in Florida coming together to mate. I love the Bronx Zoo and animals. Again, the gestures, the looks, the little things that happen, like a little giraffe popping through its mom's legs. You'll see detail in a lot of the work that I do, lots of colors in the work that I do, but some black and white as I push hard. I love rock and roll photography. I love the moments within rock and roll photography. Everybody enjoy music. That's not a bad gig. And have a great time doing it. And of course, my daughter, Christina, comes with me quite a bit to work with me. Now, this picture is significant not only to rock and roll, but it actually was the beginning of something, a project that I've created called Drummer Love. And I've heard many of the speakers today say this. Tamara just talked about the different things she does to create change. But I was trying to figure out, how do I take this rock and roll work, or the work that I'm doing on the side, for some of the performers that I work with. This happens to be Daniel Adair of Nickelback, where I've actually remotely placed cameras on drum kits. Because if you've ever photographed a concert or you've ever been to a show, First of all, the drummer is always in the back, right? Never up in the front unless it's Jason Bonham and the show is about drumming. So they're in the back of all the publicity pictures. So I'm 5'5". Could you imagine in a pit with a drummer in the back, how I can't see that drummer through all the cymbals and pipes and architecture of a drum kit? So I decided to ask Daniel if I could mount a camera directly on his kit and fire it remotely with a remote control unit. He said yes, and about 25 drummers later, this has turned into a much bigger project than I could have ever imagined. So it's all about trying to capture unique images. It's all about trying to connect it to some of the things that I'm doing to give these pictures more power and strength to help simply raise donations for the Ronald McDonald House. If you love the band Journey, you may know Steve Smith, one of the original drummers of Journey. And I've worked with quite a few drummers and tried to tie the knot between drummer love and the Ronald McDonald House of Long Island, and you'll see how I try to do that. I love portraits. The essence of portrait photography is broken down to me to just some very simple things, determining what kind of camera and lens you're going to use for a situation. Lenses to me are wide open, and I will ask the question about lenses later. What lenses work for portrait photography? Connecting with the subject is so important. I don't know you. I don't know some of you out there. How do I learn about you quickly to say, if I'm going to photograph your portrait, what is it about you that makes you tick? Making a great portrait starts with understanding. You'll see there are times that I put the camera down and I don't even use it to get used to the subject or work with the subject to decide how I'm going to approach it. And a lot of times, like Tamara Lackey has taught me in the way she photographs children, I kind of move with the subjects very quickly, and you'll see that. It's very quick moments. Focus on the eyes. I've been doing a project called Eye Contact. When you do connect with somebody, our eyes are connected, right? I keep going back, right? When we look at each other, do you invite me in by looking back, or will you look away? People say a lot through their eyes without opening their mouths, and that's something that means so much. So filling the frame, looking at different ways of creating composition, looking at the environment that you're in. I would say more times than not, I love photographing people in an environment, not just in a studio, although I do a little bit of both. And finding the quality of light is so essential. I think you know this if you are a photographer. If you're not, the quality of light means everything to your pictures. We will have a landscape photographer, Josh Cripps, talking here at the Nikon Theater within the next day or so, and he will talk to you about landscape and how important light is for that, but it's equally important for other genres of photography. So as I said before, the key to all of this is how good are you going to make your subjects look? Why do you want to make them look good? Because they're going to ask you to photograph them again. And so many times, over and over again, because they like the pictures of themselves. So the good news is, I'll never sit once with somebody. I try to create many opportunities to go back and photograph them many different times to get many different looks. And I think the harder you work at that, the more pictures you'll end up with down the road. So you really want to make the subjects look incredible, but you want to tell their story with accuracy and dignity. That's a big important thing. Two amazing female journalists are speaking here at the show for us at CES. Amy watched photographing portraits in a more intimate way at the Ronald McDonald House. The first thing I did was I went to these seasoned veterans, these photojournalists, and I said, how do you know when to shoot and when not to shoot? Because you see a lot of different things. Some courageous things, some things that are not so flattering. And the word that came up right away was dignity. If you feel that you're going to make your subject not look dignified, don't take the picture. What kind of story are you trying to tell? So I'm very careful about that when we shoot, but you want portraits to invite people. I love smiles. Like I said, I love eye contact. And the early portraits I was working on for many years through Nikon, because a lot of the work that I did ended up in Nikon brochures or would end up on a Nikon website or an article, have more of a commercial look. They're not very intimate. So I love this picture. It's beautiful, it's colorful, but have I really captured the soul of this young lady or the moment? And a lot of this early work for me was constructed. It was created. And when you do that, you lose a little essence of who that person is. You can still make a great portrait, and we'll talk about moments again. This is one of my colleague, Melissa DiBartolo's daughters. She is a beautiful little girl. This is many, many years ago with a smaller Nikon camera that allowed you to capture a camera partially in color and black and white when you selected the color. So I try to work with that technology, but I look for moments. You'll see more pictures of this very amazing soul, Batso. His last name is Macaroli. He was from a group that I work with called Rescue Inc. You'll see more pictures. but working as quickly and as efficiently as I can. Again, environments is what it's all about to me. Inside dugouts at Citi Field. My good friend Brian loves the New York Mets, and he loves a picture like this. This is Noah Syndergaard in the dugout, but instead of catching him in action on the mound, look for moments where he's quiet and peaceful, and there may be an expressive portrait moment or something that tells a bit of a story. I try to go with a portrait approach during live photography on stage, live performance photography. This is Scott Whalen from the band Stone Temple Pilots, who passed away a couple of years ago. But that eye contact or that connection with he and I from the stage to the camera is very important to this picture. So it made me think about trying to capture portraits within the moments of rock and roll when you have very limited time. A very, very beautiful young lady, Bailey, I photographed at the Ronald McDonald House. And this picture is so important to me because I think this actually launched a totally different direction after photographing at the house for many years to a different way or approach of photographing the children and the people staying at the house. Just recently we had a portrait session for the holidays. This is Faith. Faith is beautiful. We had her up in front of a Christmas tree and the bouquet from the 105mm f1.4 Nikon lens made that beautiful background. But again, just a moment where Faith was sitting there and trying to make something happen. Now, I do kind of focus in on two lenses when I photograph portraits within the focal length range of 105mm and 24 to 70mm. 105mm f1.4, so I can actually really creatively drop out the background, and similar with the 24 to 70 f2.8 VR lens, so I can be a little bit more flexible if the subjects are moving too quickly for me to just step back and make the move with a fixed focal length lens. But it really doesn't matter what level of photographer you are. There are focal lengths across the board that will allow you to achieve the same look and not have that professional gear. So I always think about like the lenses that aren't on the very professional side or our Gold Ring series to what I can do with some of the smaller cameras and some of the lighter and easier to work with lenses. So can any focal length be a portrait lens? What would you think? If you've studied photography, you think it should be maybe a 50mm lens or an 85 or a 105mm lens. When I kind of push that envelope back to making you think about the fact that any lens can be a portrait lens, and you'll see that hopefully through some of the work that I've done. And look at the special moments. Everything in life, to me, is about moments. Moments that come by, moments that are fleeting, moments that allow us to capture that 1/10 of a second in time that's very expressive with amazing gesture. So whether it's children moving, one of my colleagues, Mark Cutler, is here in the booth, right there. Hey, Mark. I photographed his son through a window while we were prepping for CES last year. And it was letting him do what he wanted to do. You'll hear me say this a lot in photographing children. You'll hear Tamara say this tomorrow. Let them be themselves. The minute you try to pose them or stop them, they are something else. And it's not going to be a great moment or a great picture. This was done for a DVD. This is Madison, many years ago with the D40X, when we were trying to present digital to an audience of people that were switching over from film to digital cameras. We were creating DVDs to try to teach people how to make that transition. On a slide, two kids coming down, one kid flatlines, that's Madison on her face coming down the slide. It's all about the moments. Peyton is one of my favorite people from the Ronald McDonald House. You'll see more of Peyton later on. Peyton was actually born at 1 pound, 5 ounces. She was a preemie, as was her sister Paige. But when you let a child kind of roam and you sit there and you wait to react and you turn on that continuous firing, all of a sudden a moment's going to pop. And you're going to find that perfect moment where you're so lucky that she's looking up towards the light, Peyton's eyes are so beautiful as they are, and a nice portrait comes out of it. We were on the road in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, when all of a sudden we were with a production crew creating a video with a photographer, Taylor Glenn, and we were at a bridge waiting for an opportunity to shoot, and a mother came up with a child, and it was a yearly thing that she had done since her baby was walking to bring it to this bridge in an outfit and make her portrait on the bridge. Of course, she saw all of us, we saw her, we were waiting, we started talking, hey, would you mind taking this picture for me? And of course, it was very beautiful. But we looked for some great moments. She brought these amazing balloons with a big weight, a kettlebell weight. It was a bit much for this little young lady to handle. But I just, with a 105 and with a 24 to 70, I tried to make as many different pictures as I possibly could of this beautiful little girl. Now, I will admit to you, this has enhancements in image editing. The kettlebell was laying on the ground with the balloons right behind her, and I asked her to jump, and then I just took out the kettlebells and the rope that was holding those balloons in post-production, but just to try to create something different. True story, I was photographing a wedding for my cousin. I don't like photographing weddings. I apologize for that. Great wedding photographers out there. If you do that for a living, God bless you. You have to be very patient. People that will tell you I look horrible when the picture looks really good, it's impossible to me. But I did photograph my cousin's wedding over the summer. I will only do family. The next one I'm doing is my nephew, and I don't know why, but I'm going to do it. But while we were coming back from the actual ceremony, the nephew of my cousin was playing in a little sand by a volleyball pit. I had the 105 millimeter lens on, and I worked it for about a minute, but all of a sudden this beautiful little boy with these beautiful eyes looked up at the camera, made a couple of different gestures with his face, and I made this picture. When I talk about the eyes being so critical to portraits, you'll see how that's important. Connecting with your subject is so important. I told you, photographers, this is John White, a Pulitzer Prize-winning photographer out of Chicago, used to work for the Chicago Sun-Times. John and I work together at workshops quite a bit. He's an amazing spiritual speaker, a mentor to me, and someone that I love very dearly. And I do. People ask me, how do you find subjects to photograph? Most of them are my friends. And I'll photograph John any and every time I can find him. You'll see how I photograph quite a few of my friends quite frequently. But it's always about those moments, and it's your job as a photographer to connect with the subject and draw something out of them. Draw the gestures out. Draw out something that's going to make a different picture, a unique picture. John White is a gentleman. He is always wearing a suit. He's always wearing a photo vest. He's always wearing sneakers. And he almost looks the same every time I photograph him, so how do I make him look different? And we talk about his spirituality, and we try to make photographs that speak to the person that he is. And there's a barn at this workshop that we do up in upstate New York in Jeffersonville called the Eddie Adams Workshop, where I will photograph John every year that we go back together. And he's just an amazing person. We talk. You'll make a picture that may not be so great in the midst of everything, but you have to direct and you have to create the reactions. You have to draw that out of your subjects in those moments. And so I asked John to put the camera up to his other eye, but I asked him to open the other eye to make the picture a little more dynamic. And then I just start talking to him about things, and I try to make him laugh. And when you come up with a gesture like this in a photograph, you feel like you've hit something just a bit different than asking someone to just stand there and make the portrait. Nick Ut. Anybody recognize Nick Ut? Or do you know the name Nick Ut? But I almost guarantee that you know his picture. If you can close your eyes and imagine a little girl naked running down the street in Vietnam after a napalm explosion, that was his Pulitzer Prize-winning photo. Nick is one of the most amazing people I have ever met on this planet. Not only did he take that picture, but he also saved the young girl's life, and that's what makes Nick so special. He actually took her, brought her to a hospital, and when they wouldn't treat her, decided to use the power of photography to say, you really need to treat this young lady or we will have a problem. And they did. They saved her life, and Nick is responsible for that. She lives in Connecticut with a beautiful family, and is her name. But I love Nick. Why? The character in his face. What would attract you to Nick? He's got these amazing eyebrows. He's got amazing eyes. He's got a beautiful smile. And again, one after the next after the next. I'll never just shoot one picture. Just keep shooting. The best thing you have is a memory card that you can fill up, and you can add another one if you wanted to. You can delete, which I don't recommend. I typically don't delete things. But you have the opportunities here. And I move closer and I move further away. And Nick, can you put the camera up to your eye? And let's do this again the next time I see you. Evgeny Mishin, a bodybuilder, professional bodybuilder, former. Now he's an actor. He wants to be the next Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's doing TV commercials. He's an agent like the FBI guy on most of these shows now for the government. But Evgeny and I have been working together for quite a long time. I love working with different trainers. Julianne, a beautiful fitness trainer from New York City. We wanted to work together. We talked to each other. What are you looking for? Well, I'm looking for pictures for my website, for my training website. Okay, great. I love your tattoos. I would love to make something really cool in black and white with the tattoos. So I work with her on her ideas, and then she gives me time for mine. But I can pose her all day long. It was one moment in the midst of everything where she was squatting down with the weights that she loved the most to put on her website because she loved the genuine moment. So it's all about those genuine moments. Understand the people that you photograph. If you understand them, you can tell their story, and you can tell it, like I said before, with dignity. Rescue Inc., a bunch of thugs that would save animals. I had to photograph their portraits for websites. I talked to each of them to find out exactly what it was that made them tick. Joe Pans loved his motorcycles. This one's a hair dark up on the screen, but you got Big Anth with a parakeet and a little kitten. The job was to try to make these thugs look so cute and lovable with animals because they loved animals and wanted to teach people who treated animals poorly that it was the wrong thing to do. But they did it in their thug-like way. They were going to show you why you were bad or you're mean. Batso again. Batso grew up, had a little bit of a bad background, ended up meeting a woman 30 years younger than him, a banker, a beautiful woman, and she turned his life around. And he loves his rescue, Inca. And every time I have the opportunity, I try to reach out to Batso to make different pictures. But if you don't think that a lot of this has to do with luck when it comes to moments, then you're sadly mistaken. One of my favorite pictures of Batso was when we were out at a beach, a flock of seagulls took off, his dog Inca looked that way, but Batso happened to just have his face right up at the moment. These are the moments that I want to continue to work on. We were many years ago with Nikon at a steam engine restoration facility in Albuquerque, New Mexico. These gentlemen and ladies that were actually fixing and restoring the locomotives, they wore the garb. It was so easy to walk in, and we were actually there for a video project, but once I started taking pictures with a 58mm lens, each of the guys started to pose in the respective areas of that train that they were working on. Moments just happen. If you're ready, you have your camera, I will photograph you. That's just the way it works. Portraits becomes a part of my job at Nikon. Next time we went back out to do this production in Jackson Hole with a 200 to 500mm zoom lens, I was able to capture his portrait. Always looking for the moments, always looking to be in different environments. I've traveled a picture from Vietnam of just simple setup of a young lady sitting on a staircase holding the rope to her boat in the bay. My nephew's band wanted someplace cool, so we took them to a rustic place with a lot of graffiti. Anybody recognize this gentleman? Chef Bobby Flay. I photographed him for a horse racing magazine. I had about 2 minutes to make this picture. So you have to work quickly to create moments. This is a posed picture. One of my highlights of my career was getting back to seeing my high school photography teacher 40 years after high school. Not so bad. I promised I would come see her. What do you think she was doing the entire time? She taught me the entire time I was there while making me a turkey dinner. And she continued to teach when I posted this picture and somebody asked about the painting she was holding. It's gold leaf paint and it's all these different colors and you have to cure the wood and you have to do all this stuff. And my son at graduation, a moment coming down the steps. I wanted to give him some beautiful pictures of his graduation. Here's a beautiful young man who's very smart and very talented, ended up giving the keynote speech at his graduation. And it was just such an amazing moment. These pictures from the Ronald McDonald House. Think about all of these things I'm saying because this is the approach that I'm taking at the house. Good friend of mine, again, another friend, Headley Jones out of California. Look at those eyes, look at that smile, look at that face. That is a face with character. I will photograph Headley as often as I possibly can, but in a very quick exercise, I asked Headley to look away from the camera, stare into the camera, and then look at the camera, but change the expression in your mouth. Don't smile as much. And you can see that each picture takes on its own characteristic. I'm not here to judge whether one's good or bad, which one works, which one doesn't. I happen to love the picture in the middle. That is who Headley is to me, and that's what I want to do to represent him in the work I do. Coming back again, many times with Headley, photographing him, eyes away from the camera, eyes into the camera. Again, I'm not hard, I'm not that hard. You can photograph somebody without making eye contact. So this is Headley, a third time photographing him with his sunglasses on. And he just took a drag of a cigarette and let some of the smoke out. But eye contact is very important. Do you feel like you're drawn into this picture? Do you feel like this person's giving you the opportunity to at least look a little bit into their soul? A colleague of mine, Lindsay Silverman, right here in the booth. While thinking about eye contact, I would take a bunch of Nikon employees, run down to the studio, and make their portrait and say, just look into my camera. Tell me something about you with your eyes. Mark Cutler. You saw his son before. Beautiful face, beautiful eyes. Tommy and Eric. And I had this thing going on, and it was all about the men in the building, and there was a reason for that, and ladies can't be offended because it was the facial hair that added a little grit to the picture And I had a lot of women angry with me in the office saying, how come you're not bringing me downstairs for my portrait? But you had to have facial hair. That was one of the requisites to being able to do this, a prerequisite. But just beautiful faces, beautiful eyes. I hope he's not watching because it's my boss, but my boss, I asked to come downstairs. Again, you have to kind of push this sometimes, but after a while, everybody's like, well, when is it my turn? My friend Alfredo, who I work with, he's out here somewhere. I brought him in. How did I draw something out of him? I truly asked him, I want you to give me a look like somebody just stole your puppy. And this is the look that he gave me. And then one of my favorite people on the planet, who I work with for many years teaching Nikon school, we've been at Nikon over 35 years together, Steve Heiner, who is a director and a filmmaker and has an amazing passion for video, and I brought him down to shoot his picture as well. Whether it's people or animals, to me, eye contact is so important. It draws you in. This is something wrong, that little passive look looking up at me. Every expression says something and helps tell the story. So, to me, this is where it shifted gears a little bit. Nikon has an outreach program called Flash. It's a corporate social responsibility that we have within our community, so we connected with 2 charities on Long Island, the Sunrise Summer Camp and the Ronald McDonald House of Long Island. And quite a few years ago, I was actually asked to do portraits in the spring and the fall, 2 times a year, where we would post signs that said, come in, get a portrait, we will make you prints, we'll give you a jump drive with your images, and you can have them as a gift from us. The whole point was to try to draw them into a place to just have some fun and laugh. And it took me a while to get ramped up with this, but trying to figure out and trying to psychologically understand that I could walk in that door and walk out and be strong. Because it's a very difficult situation when you're brought into an environment and you're asked to photograph sick children or create photographs in situations where the days that they're spending at the house are not the best. Because the good news is they have the Ronald McDonald House to go to. The sad news is if they're there for a reason. And it's a very tough thing. But I started doing this for many years and started connecting with the children, and I realized what a fun assignment it was. It wasn't about being a house that Love built. Isn't about anything other than making people smile. That's the rule of the house. It's not a sad place to be, but there are tough moments. But our job was to go in there. I went in there with a team of Nikon people, and to one thing, to psychologically make it through. I thought that the right thing to do was disconnect myself from the whole process. I didn't ask a lot about names. I didn't ask a lot about illness. I didn't ask a lot about the prognosis or what was going on. And it was several years later when I started to make that shift to understand what was happening that I could say, all right, well, I'm making these okay portraits, but how do I actually make a portrait to tell a better story about the journey? And you'll understand how that shifted. But whether it was a sibling of a sick child or that sick child, we go in, we take these amazing portraits, and we try to do something to just make them laugh. I have to admit, I become an idiot when I get in there. I wrestle on the floor, we jump around, I put the camera down. You try to connect with these children because that's what you need to do first before you pick up the camera. Something, again, I learned to logically make it through. I thought that the right thing to do was disconnect myself from the whole process. I didn't ask a lot about names. I didn't ask a lot about illness. I didn't ask a lot about the prognosis or what was going on. And it was several years later when I started to make that shift to understand what was happening that I could say, all right, well, I'm making these okay portraits, but how do I actually make a portrait to tell a better story about the journey? And you'll understand how that shifted. But whether it was a sibling of a sick child or that sick child, we go in, we take these amazing portraits, and we try to do something to just make them laugh. I have to admit, I become an idiot when I get in there. I wrestle on the floor, we jump around, I put the camera down. You try to connect with these children because that's what you need to do first before you pick up the camera. Something, again, I learned from one of my photojournalism friends approaching the subject. And just looking for these moments. You have to move around quickly. So as I did turn to my friend Tamara Lackey, how do you do this so quickly? And it really is a process of shooting a lot, making moves, trying to get the camera away from your eye to create that eye contact and communicate. And she does that so well and taught me how to do that. But at this stage, here I am asking the child to pose. And I'm not saying they're bad pictures. They're not at all. I think they're beautiful pictures. They love the pictures. But it was actually this young man that I began talking to in the process and asking him about basketball and getting more immersed into his emotion and the things that he liked to photograph him. And as I'm photographing him, I'm thinking, how do I make him look dignified? How do I make a picture that he's going to like and love? And something that someone's going to see and they're going to say, I need to do something. I need to do something to change what's going on here, to help support. And it's pretty obvious when a child is sick, but you don't hide from that. And my original gut was like, well, how do you take these pictures and use them? How do you share them? Until you realize that the potential and power of every picture you take can bring a $5 or $10 donation to the house, which is what they live on. Sure, they love the great big donations, the big events that they create to create more funds and create more revenue for the house. But you have to think about this in a little more granular way when you think about how many rolls of toilet paper they need, how many rolls of paper towels do they go through. You know, how quickly do their resources deplete, and they have to constantly bring them back. Now, a lot of what I talk about in photography is about impact, energy, and emotion. And many times I thought about that and taught that in sports photography. But here's a picture that gives you everything. Impact, energy, and emotion, which are the three keys in my world to making a good picture. It doesn't have to be an action shot. So this young lady was going through a bone marrow transplant. We did not speak the same language. Another person here in the booth, Erica Hill, was with me. She communicated through her smile. We communicated through pointing the camera. We communicated through showing her the LCD of the camera. But there was a moment she was standing in front of this beautiful yellow house in the main room of the Ronald McDonald House, and she just looked into the camera and smiled. Eye contact means everything to me. But then I started to go a little bit deeper and started immersing myself because, again, the tough part to deal with is when you photograph a child at the house, I would say 9 times out of 10 you're going to see that child come back again. And I photographed them again. This is Kaylee, teen Kaylee. A beautiful young lady I photographed for the very first time when she was 3.5 years old. I just photographed her again recently at 7 years old. Because she'll keep coming back to the house for different procedures that she has to go through. She's beautiful. I enjoy photographing her. We look for amazing moments. Sometimes I posed her, sometimes I didn't. But I've watched this young lady grow, and I became very emotionally attached to her and her family. Her mom is amazing. She was diagnosed with, which is Chiari. You want to talk about irony? I was diagnosed with the same thing several years later. Somehow, some way, it all comes together. Beautiful eyes, beautiful face. I talk with her. Look this way, look that way. Try to do things. Let her look one direction over my shoulder. Let her look the other way. And I photographed her in this beautiful little hat called Love My Melon. Love Your Melon. And with those eyes, that hat, the beautiful hair, the circumstances, and her beautiful personality, how could you go wrong in making these pictures? You just can't go wrong. Peyton, I showed you this picture of Peyton for the Ronald McDonald House for the season. All of a sudden, when you see eyes and you make eye contact, I immediately registered with Peyton's eyes. And she was running around her mom. And this is nothing more than about 30 seconds of shooting, I kid you not. And this is Peyton when I got her attention, and her mom said, "Do you remember him? He took your picture before." And the eyes opened up and the mouth opened up, and I'm like, oh man, that's so amazing. And if it wasn't enough for her mom and dad to deal with her being born at 1 pound 5 ounces, her sister Paige was also a preemie. So imagine the battle that this family faces, constantly having to go through the house for procedures. Even though the children are beautiful and healthy, there are still a lot of challenges and struggles. And that day at the walk, I made a picture of her mom and these 2 beautiful young ladies, and it's become one of the staple pictures for the Ronald McDonald House this year. And they love that. And that's the beauty in all this. What's so satisfying about this is that they like their pictures. And you feel great about that. Now all of a sudden, I post something and $500 worth of donations pop in for that day or that post. And I've done that quite frequently. Again, immersing yourself in the world. I mentioned Bailey before. Bailey had her head shaved. Ironically, Bailey has Chiari as well. I've talked to her mom, Brenda, quite a bit about the same disease I was diagnosed with, not nearly as bad as them. But I wanted to make Bailey understand, and I hopefully you believe this, Bailey. She's the most beautiful young lady. It has nothing to do with hair. It's everything about her personality and those beautiful eyes. But you find those moments, you create the gestures, you try to make somebody laugh. I get very goofy when I do this. You know how people talk baby talk to their babies, or they talk baby talks to their animals and pets? I talk crazy, crazy talk when I'm trying to make people laugh and try to throw out as many different things. But there's also a point where you want to make eye contact and have somebody understand the struggle. No day for Bailey is easy. Although I will say that she just recently got married. I hope to never see Bailey again, but I know I probably will. But this picture means everything to me. And when I went in to photograph Bailey, I swear to God this is the truth. Again, usually we do 1 to 5 to 7 families during a session. When I walked through the door, there were several families in the main room because they knew I was, because I wanted to know what was wrong with Bailey. I wanted to know what the prognosis is. I wanted to know what was wrong with Kaylee. I want to know what was wrong with everybody, and I want to know what's going to happen. And I want to know what it is I can do to help their worlds. And some other beautiful families like the Swiharts that came in. Amazing. 4 of their children have Chiari as well. But they come back to this house. It's almost like a revolving door for them. They're constantly, her husband and the mom are just constantly going through the house, 1, 2, 3 at a time. And this is their beautiful family. And these people that come to the house, these children become friends. And they connect, and you become friends with them. And it's amazing when a beautiful young lady actually is looking for me because I'm on site with the camera, and we talk, and is it okay if I photograph you? God, I want you to photograph me. That's the best feeling in the world. So now, true story, while I'm there on this very same day, a beautiful young lady named Teresa came up to me and said, we were here during one of the portrait sessions, but my son was being treated over at the Cohen's Children's Center. We missed the portrait session. I said, that doesn't mean anything. Let's photograph. You want to make pictures right now? Well, let's set something up. And I immediately became connected with probably one of the most amazing young men I've ever met, Dylan. Dylan has neuroblastoma, a very aggressive form of cancer. Right now there are no cancer cells in his body, but if the cancer cells come back, he will not make it. Right now his best shot is 50-50 after 2 stem cell transplants. But he's one of the smartest young men I have ever met. This is where, again, I went to friends and said, how do I approach this? I went to Amy Vitale, and I said, how do you tell this story? How do you immerse yourself in somebody's world? Because this was a bit different. Dylan's mom asked me, straight up, would you photograph Dylan and document the struggle that he's going through or everything that he's going through? And I said, why would you want to do that? I said, I'm happy to do that. And she quickly came back and said, I want him to remember what he went through. And it immediately dawned on me to just come back with what I thought was just very genuine and sincere. I said, okay, I have no problem doing this as often as you want, but I want to photograph his first day at school. I want to photograph his graduation. I want to photograph him going to the prom. I want to photograph him when he gets married. I want to photograph him many years down the road as long and as often as I can. But this is when I met Dylan. He had no hair on his body because he was coming out of aggressive chemo treatment. He's a beautiful little soul. At 5 years old, he missed his 5th birthday. We ended up having another party. They had another party for him. And now I decided to get into this mode where I just became that photographer that tried to be the fly on the wall but make as many different pictures as I could of Dylan. And something about black and white just seemed to fit, so I started this in black and white, or I will shift to color every once in a while. But how Dylan connected and bonded to his mother was the most amazing thing I'd seen. Obviously, she means the world to him. She is his everyday. Her father is there alongside as well, but his mother's there every day treating him. She lost her job because she spends more time in the hospital than the house. The resources go down, and it's not just the stories of the struggle of the sickness, it's medicine gets cut out. They have to figure out where the next paycheck is going to come from to pay the rent. They have to figure out how they're going to pay for that next dose of medicine if they want to do some preemptive medicine or do some preemptive procedure to limit the potential for the cancer to come back. So to just follow him. Dylan had rules. You have to live by his rules. Couldn't touch his toys. And if I go up in his room, you can't block the TV. Or you'd be put in jail. Dylan has a jail at the Ronald McDonald House, the computer room that he locks you in. Right, Dylan? I know you're looking out there. You're probably watching. And I've been in jail probably about 30 times, and that's okay, because I put him back in jail too. But it's a very slow procedure to work yourself into somebody's world. I want Dylan to trust me. I know his mom does, I know his dad does, I know his grandparents do. And he did eventually say it was okay for me to come up in the room. And again, you don't run quickly here. You go slowly, you crawl, you take a few pictures here and there, you put the camera down. You look for moments and wait for moments to happen. Rico Lockwood, and a beautiful, beautiful service dog that comes to the house, a healing dog that comes to the house quite frequently. I love it when this dog comes, but the dog comes up in the room because Dylan says, please, can this dog come up into my room? And Rico Lockwood goes up into the room. He's so into superheroes, so how do I learn more about his story? He loves his superheroes, so Batman came to visit him at the house. So I talked to Teresa and I said, what's going on? Well, Batman's coming, would you mind taking pictures? I'm there. Not a question at all. If I'm on the road, I can't be there. If not, but documenting Dylan with Batman was part of the story and what I wanted to do. His mother, his Teresa, the good times, the bad times, the difficult times. It's so, so hard, but you have to stay focused on making beautiful pictures. And then we set up a shoot where we got him in a couple of different ties and outfits, and here's this little beautiful boy, looks a little like Yul Brynner. And I just kept taking pictures and kept taking pictures and looked for beautiful moments as we connected and ran around the house. I am running, I am sweaty, I am tired and depleted every time I leave because of the time that I've spent with these beautiful children. Working so hard to just try to make pictures that we like, that don't cross a line, that really kill the spirit of who Dylan is and shows the positive side, but there are tough, tough moments. Hide and seek, we play it all the time. I actually was asked to babysit Dylan in the hospital when he was in for a procedure, but it was really more like Dylan was babysitting me. We had some fun. He asked me if he'd get some carob chips, chocolate chips from a bag in his mother's bag. I gave it to him, and I said, I don't know if I'm supposed to do this, but do me a favor, don't tell your mother that I gave you the chocolate chips. Life is about moments. She came through the door as he's eating these chips, and he tries to quickly hide them. That's the gesture, that's the moment. But with the good comes the tough. Where do you stop? Little boy, 33 pounds, cold after a shower, comes out, and that cold basically burns his body. He's got to be wrapped up, and he's got to get through that moment. Very tough. He's well beyond this stage in his life right now in his treatments, but still, it's a struggle. He's got to take his own medicine. Maybe that's not something he wants to do, but constantly looking for these moments and these gestures. Looking for the details, looking for the feet. Any little thing that I can make a picture of, and I just keep shooting. Sometimes it's very, very difficult. Sometimes it's a picture that just seems to work a little bit better in color. But I learned and I watched, and do you see something dramatic happening in these pictures? This young man has eyelashes again. His hair is growing back. This beautiful boy is someone that's become a much more integral part of my life. I play with his toys now. He even hands me certain toys. But the new toys, sometimes the big superheroes, I don't get a shot at holding. Maybe I will soon. But again, a lot of it is roughhousing. A lot of it is going out, shopping. Don't feel bad. This was after a day at the Shake Shack in New York where we went out shopping, and he was just very tired at the end of the day and plopped down, and I tried to make this picture. Birthday party. Had a chance to go photograph that birthday party that they missed to the 5th birthday. His first day of school was a amazing moment for me, momentous occasion. We went out, we went to Dunkin' Donuts, we got to the school, we went in the schoolyard, and I made these pictures of him with his mom, with his dad. You could see the look on his face in fear of going to school. What kid isn't afraid of kindergarten? My kids were. But we worked it, and we got those moments, and he sat down at his desk for the very first time. While we were waiting in the courtyard, holding his dad's finger, looking for those little moments and gestures. We were back at the Ronald McDonald House. He fell. He was in pain. I wanted to make him laugh, so I shoved cupcake in my face. He did the same thing. We laughed together, and we broke the bad moment. But I would guarantee almost 90% of our time is wrestling on the floor. I meet Dylan, and it starts to grow. And then I meet a beautiful lady named Amber. And I meet a beautiful little girl named Callie, who has Faces disease. Tumors growing inside of her mouth and around her eye area, throughout her head. Creates deformity. She's been working through her entire life, through surgical procedures, through chemotherapy, through laser procedures, to get through what she's going through. She will never be healed. but she's one of the most beautiful people I have ever met. Beautiful blonde hair, beautiful moments. We put the camera down, we talk. Many, many times my daughter, who is a nurse at NICU at Stony Brook University in New York, comes out with me, and we connect with these children, and we try to create these moments. But the beautiful spirit of Callie from upstate New York is something that I was so connected to right away. Beautiful moments, beautiful situations, but I just let Callie become herself, let her be herself. The spirit this young lady has is greater than anybody I have ever met. You want to know who Callie is? This is who Callie is. Young lady, Princess Callie, who's dancing around the Ronald McDonald House every day trying to make people smile, and out of nowhere, you will get a kiss on the cheek, and she will say, "I love you," and you melt right on the spot. She has dogs at home. She loves the service dog, Rico. But waiting for those moments when she rests is just as it's critically important to me. Guess what? She's friends with Dylan. There's a connection here, and it continues to grow. And again, when they post, it makes me feel great donations. Now another friend comes into the picture, little Zoe. Has cancer as well. Zoe's going through some very rough times. A beautiful mom, beautiful grandmother, and it is my job to make the best pictures I can of Zoe. Beautiful little girl. One moment when her mother had picked her up after falling, she starts walking to the camera, so you always have to be ready. What a beautiful, emotional moment. Probably one of my favorite pictures I've ever taken at the house. But I will photograph Zoe as long as Mom allows me to, and again, I've been immersed into their world, and whenever they need me, I'm gonna make my way to go make these pictures. That's what this is all about. Time and time again. And a lot of times the kids come together and we make these portraits together. How do I use this camera as a tool to make change? How do I connect with these subjects? How do I try to make the best pictures that make them smile? How do I keep coming back time and time again to make this work when I've had so many people come to me and say, "How do you do this? How could you possibly do this?" And it's very simple. When you're making these pictures, the first thing you have to realize before you can move forward is it's not about you. It's about them. It's not about my emotion. It's about to do the best job to represent them in these photographs, so someone, somewhere is going to click the donation button on the Ronald McDonald House of Long Island's webpage. It's an amazing thing that's going on. So now has taken a new turn. I told you about the drummers that I'm working with. I've worked with now quite a few drummers, close to 20 or so drummers. This is Drew Scholes of the band Train. We work together. And what I have approached these drummers with is, I would be happy to photograph you. I would be happy to give you a drive of images. I will happy to do that when you show me that you've made a donation to the Ronald McDonald House of Long Island. You decide how much. But as long as it pays back, and as long as they showed me that they've done it, I am so happy to give them the pictures. Now all of a sudden, the bar is raised, the money starts to come in, and there's not a drummer I haven't photographed that hasn't said, out of New Jersey. And all of a sudden a card came in the mail after I photographed him and said the same thing. "Noah, this is what I do. I will photograph you if you make a donation." I got a little card from the Ronald McDonald House that said Noah made a $300 donation. I almost fell out of my chair. Every little thing we do makes a difference. So tying drummer love to the Ronald McDonald House is what this is about. And trying to do the best job that I can to make photography speak to a larger audience and do good for somebody or an organization like the Ronald McDonald. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you guys coming and watching this. We have some amazing programs coming up over the next 3 days. You will see Tamara Lackey again. You'll see Amy Vitale. You'll see Josh Cripps. You'll see some of the most amazing photographers on the face of this planet. Thank you guys for your time. If you're tuning in, all of these programs will be posted to Nikon's website, nikonusa.com live. You can see them as many times as you want. And again, I appreciate you coming. Tomorrow, a whole new day.
Every generation.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
For professional photographers, artists, and camera enthusiasts around the world, we're proud to have been able to inspire society through a